You had me at Cello, Cello. You had me at Cello. You had me at Cello. Oh, you had me at Cello.
Hi, everybody. 5 o'clock on a Friday again. So it's time for Cello Chat. I so much look forward to this every time, and I am particularly delighted this week I have with me as my guest, Dr. Ransom, Adriana Ransom. How are you doing today, Professor Ransom?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you very much. I hope you're doing very well as well.
Yes, I am, and very much looking forward to this. So let's start as we always do. The audience would love to hear about your musical background. How did you get to where you are?
Okay. Well, I actually started as a violinist at age 3. My mother put my siblings and I in Suzuki violin, in a Suzuki program in Kansas City, where I'm from. And so I played violin from age 3 to age 8. And I honestly don't remember a whole lot about that. I could still kind of get around on the violin, but I must have quit right before we started learning vibrato and shifting because I'm very uncomfortable doing those two things on the violin. And my older brother and sister played violin as well. And our school orchestra director actually was the one who suggested I play cello. And maybe that's because he wanted, a cellist in the ensemble when he already had my siblings on violin. But I think it was a good switch for me. I think my personality is more of a cellist personality. I don't like to be in the spotlight that much. So I enjoy being the bass role in the symphony or a quartet. And then, when it's your turn to be a solo, okay. But I'm perfectly happy to be the supporting role, a lot of the time. So I started with not Suzuki cello, just traditional cello. My teacher at the time was a member of the Kansas City Symphony. Somehow she managed to do that and have 60 students or some insane number at the time. She also played in the ballet and, the Kansas City Opera and everything. So she was a great role model for me of somebody who was performing and teaching. And I think that stayed with me for a long time. Kansas City has a great youth symphony program. And so I was involved in that. And in the 8th grade, we did a side-by-side trip with the St. Louis Youth Symphony. So we got to get on buses and go to St. Louis and perform in the Powell Hall there, which I had never seen anything quite as beautiful as an 8th grader. And we played the Pines of Rome, with double the forces. And I thought, this is the coolest thing ever. And that's when I decided that I really loved symphony orchestra music. And for a long time, I really aspired to be an orchestral cellist, full time. But I was always teaching on the side. Even in high school, I had private students that were younger than me. And by the time I finished my 3 degrees in cello performance, I was a lot more interested in the teaching. Although I had a opera job and, was subbing with different orchestras and things. So the great thing about being a university professor, which is where I landed, is, teaching is the focus, but then I still get to play in regional orchestras and, play with our faculty string quartet. And I'm expected to give a recital every year when I was the cello professor. So it really was a great combination of everything.
Excellent. And how did you end up in administration?
I suppose here at Illinois State, we have one of the string project sites. So the National String Project Consortium is a group of about 40 string project programs around the country. And when I took the job at Illinois State, I was assigned to be the programs director. And I had to look up to see what a string project was because I had never heard of it when I came to ISU back in 2006. But there was a lot of administration involved with that, just a lot of organizing and, keeping track of students and parents and registrations and scheduling and finding outreach events and lots of communication, all those good things that administrators do. So that was kind of my slightly different focus, but kind of my administrative training, budgets and grant writing, all that kind of fun business with string project. And then, something came up in our department where our department chair took another position. And I just really love our department, and I love our students and faculty, and thought it would be a nice way to get to work actually more frequently with more faculty and more students than just being, in the cello studio.
All right, outstanding. And let's see, Dr. Remenikova has been a guest on this series as well in the past, and you got to study with her at University of Minnesota. Is there anything about, of course, there's always a lot that we carry from our own teachers into our playing and our teaching, but was there anything in particular that stood out from your studies with her that that you think about on a daily basis?
Sure. Well, two things. Backing up a step. So my original teacher in Kansas City, as I mentioned, was a member of the symphony. Later, I switched to studying with Dr. Nina Gordon, who was the principal of the Kansas City Symphony. She came to Kansas City to be the principal. And then later she moved to Central Illinois and became the cello professor at Illinois Wesleyan, like 2 miles down the road from me, which is really funny. She was here before I came after my doctoral studies. But so Nina was also is a Russian cellist, as is Tanya. And I remember feeling so proud when somebody told me, "You sound like a Russian cellist." And I went, "Yes!" Between the two of them, I felt like I had really achieved something special. But I think from Dr. Remenikova in particular, she always performed with such poise. And it was just really admirable. Always with such precision and as well. But she performed so artfully and with such poise. And I, as a college student, I kind of felt like a nervous wreck most of the time. And I just kept, envisioning how she could do that and, work to strive towards that. She was very good for me in that way, I think, and just getting me to kind of calm down.
Tremendous. That's excellent. All right. So the topic of motivation, I think, is going to be with us for hundreds, thousands of years. People like the idea of being a musician, of playing an instrument, but kind of only go so far for various reasons. So, the fact that it's different, sometimes different reasons for different people can certainly make it sometimes a complex answer. But what are some of your favorite ideas in your bag of tricks for, okay, here's a student that is not as far as they think from getting over that hump and learning to love the process of practicing itself and practicing on a regular basis? What do you do with your students towards that end?
You're right. It is a tricky thing. There's that kind of lull between when you start and things are new and it's exciting because it's new, and there's kind of something new to learn almost every lesson when you're beginning. There's just so much to do. You feel like you need 3 lessons a week because there are just so many new things to learn. And then you get to be kind of that intermediate level where you might not be old enough to have some of the inspiring experiences and the social communities that, that do inspire and motivate a lot of people. And I certainly went through that myself. There was definitely a period where maybe I'm a good sight reader because I didn't practice etudes like I was supposed to, and I essentially sight read them every lesson. But nevertheless, my teacher pulled out the book, whether I'd practiced it or not. And, we went through the etudes. And to this day, I'm a big lover of playing and practicing etudes because they just feel so good to work on. So I guess with my students, definitely trying to find repertoire that excites people as much as it can. I try to do some other I don't know, external ways of thinking about pieces, whether that's through use of color, or, sometimes I'd have students draw out a comic strip to express, with stick figures, like to express different themes, or having a huge list of adjectives and writing them in something that they can make a piece a little bit more personal and feel connected to it. One of the things that inspired me I'd probably say middle school age, was both being in situations where I was playing great music with other musicians. So sometimes that was youth orchestra, sometimes that was chamber music, even at that age, and then finding music that or listening to a lot of music. Actually, that first orchestra teacher that I had, or cello teacher that I had, who was in the orchestra, she would actually give me a cassette tape of great music, like every week or every couple of weeks. Brahms double concerto, that awesome recording of Starker playing all the Etudes, piano trio, just everything. And I didn't know what any of this was, and she just fed it to me every week. And I had my little, I felt so cool because I had my own little cassette player in my room, and I would, things. But that was, I guess hearing what a cello could do was, I was just amazed, like with the Starker, what's it called? The Road to Cello Playing.
Yes,
I think
that's right.
That album. And I just listened to that over and over and over because I just thought it was so cool. So, I think with my, if I'm teaching pre-college students, trying to get them involved either in their youth orchestras or having recitals coming up, studio recitals and things, so that they have something to prepare for and then can, enjoy playing for other people. I tend to try to schedule things at retirement homes and assisted living homes and things, so that people can perform in a low stakes situation. Sometimes we play, Christmas cello quartet music or things like that, where you're reminded of the enjoyment, I guess, of playing, in addition to, working on technical things. And then, there's always something productive that can occur during a lesson. I had one student who's, after every recital, the parent would say, my child isn't motivated to practice. They never practice at home. However, this student always performed memorized on every recital, so somehow it was sticking. And by his senior year, somehow, even though he was never practicing, he was still playing Dvorak concerto. And I was like, okay, well, maybe he doesn't need to practice. I don't know. If he maybe he practices at school. I really don't know. But I think just, keep working with students in the lesson, because there's always something you can accomplish. And if you just kind of stick through those couple of rocky years, they usually, like you said, come to the point where they just like the process and want to improve on their own.
Excellent. There was a lot of great suggestions in there. Of course, repertoire that they're excited about, but then, the idea of feeling a connection with the music can help. I think we all kind of have to find a way to think about a piece as always having more room to hone it further and to work on it further. And, if they feel that connection, then it's not just, oh, well, I'll just play through this piece again, make sure there's no sour notes or anything. It's like, no. I need to really get it to take it to where I'm feeling that it could go.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. And then also, scheduling low pressure performances like a nursing home, retirement places, in a way, because we could say, all right, well, I practice better when I have a performance coming up. But if you schedule one that's a public performance, well, you need to have your repertoire up to a particular level. But honestly, at retirement homes, they are perfectly happy to hear a work in progress.
Mm-hmm. That is very true. I still do that to this day. If I have a big performance coming up, like if I'm playing a concerto at the symphony, I will definitely play it somewhere before the first rehearsal, because I just don't feel, I just need it. I know I need it myself to be able to play it, test it out out and play it for a very welcoming audience. It always feels good.
It does. It's totally win-win. They love it and we love it. Great.
Yep.
All right. So Etudes, it's like as vast as the cello repertoire is, there is no doubt that we keep getting drawn either to Bach suites or to Popper or just Etudes in general, or both. And so a few of the more recent guests have been talking about Bach suites, but let's talk about Popper, both his concert pieces, which have a lot of pedagogical component, a lot of things you can teach out of those, of course, as well. And then, of course, his famous or maybe infamous 40 Etudes. How do you, maybe we can separate those if you want. We can talk a little bit about what you see as being the merits of teaching Popper, and then it can maybe also be a little bit about how you use Etudes in general in your teaching.
Sure. Well, I, growing up, played some of the more standard Popper solos like Hungarian Rhapsody and Tarantella, and I thought they were great. And then a long time later, I realized there are 70 more, character pieces that he wrote, not all of which are easily available anymore, but and that they're, because he was a professor, a teacher, basically, as well as a performer, he wrote character pieces that are just charming at all levels. So, there's some really, a couple pieces that really are very sort of late beginner or early intermediate level that really are great pieces of music. And that I think one of the nice things about a lot of the character pieces is they're about 3 minutes long, right? 2.5 to 3 minutes. So you get this little gem of an idea and this gem of, this one little technique. Maybe it's the thumb position, maybe it's something with the bow that you can, work on and perfect in this little nutshell. So there was an event in Chicago that the Chicago Cello Society hosted a while ago that was basically a recital of all Popper solos. And that's what I was, I think, first introduced to just some of the variety. And then I just kept digging and finding more. And so I started hosting an event at ISU each year, just called Popper Day. And I found for my college students, it ended up being a great kind of late, or actually basically mid-semester, mid-fall performance. So something we could start at the beginning of the semester, learn quickly. It didn't need to be, at the top of their technique level, but it was just something quick to learn, get out there and perform early on. And then we'd have the rest of the semester to work on something a little bit more meaty or be working on that all along. So it was a nice project, I think, for my college students to have that. And then, just kind of like in Suzuki repertoire classes, like every year, if you do that for 4 years, you're hearing all these different ones. And then you start going, oh, I want to play Nomentans next year because I really like that one. Or I remember when so-and-so, and then you get that connection of repertoire that you've heard it a few times and get excited when you get to be the person to do that. And then for the Etudes, I mean, yes, getting to the Popper Etudes as a student myself was, it's a big, important moment when you get to open that book. But I had, I worked out of a lot of the just standard German, the Dotzauers and lots of Klingel, lots of Dotzauer, lots of Sebastian Lee Etudes. And I still, if I just want to sit around and play the cello for a while, I just play Etudes just because they're not even, I don't play the Popper ones. I play the easy ones that just feel good because, you're just going to work out your bow here. You're going to work out some shifting here. And it's just kind of like cleansing or something. It's like drinking a green smoothie.
I love that. There is definitely something where if you look at what's common among the people who get out their cello every day or almost every day and the people who don't, and when you love the actual feel of playing the cello and even the way that your hands feel afterwards, it feels right. And a lot of those Etudes, of course, written for various aspects of the technique. So you're really getting to immerse in them. That makes a lot of sense. What's kind of funny is the first time students maybe, okay, they run across, here's these 40 high school etudes. Oh, but there's 10 preparatory etudes. Oh, good. And the first one's easy, but the other 9 are not really. I mean, there are some of the easiest of the 40 are easier than 2 through 10 of the preparatory.
Yeah, those are, and I didn't ever work out of those as a student myself, but I've come to know them since then. And I think you may have had this revelation at some point, but at some point I realized Popper himself was playing Wagner operas, and he went, "Oh, that's why there are these key signatures with 6 sharps and all these chromatic things." Like, that makes total sense.
Right. Yeah, and it's a good point too about even his more accessible, technically, character pieces still have that chromaticism. They're still great for the ear training that you need for anything written after the classical period. Now, okay, so in terms of future projects, you're still going with Popper. What's a project you're hoping to finish up one of these days?
Yes, one of these days. So as part of the Popper Day I started doing at ISU, I started arranging the piano accompaniments of solos to be cello choirs. So most of the pieces that I arranged, cello 1 would be the melody, and then cellos 2 through 4 or 2 through 4.5 would be, we would play it as a cello choir, but it would just be taking the piano part and dividing it up. Every now and then I'd switch the melody around. Like No Mentance was a fun one that I actually passed the melody around between the instruments. And so now I have probably at least 15 pieces that I wrote out for cello choir that are the Popper solos, because we would always end the concert with a couple of them. And then I would have students that participated 5-6 years in a row, and I didn't want them to keep playing the same pieces. So I kept writing new ones, or writing out, arranging new ones. So one of these days I'd like to kind of clean up the parts and make them more accessible for other people. I've certainly shared them with a lot of my alumni and other people I know, but they're kind of a mess with mistakes and, because my finale skills aren't the top notch, So it would be nice to get those organized because they're fun, and I think other people would use them.
Definitely. Hasn't it been fun to see the cello ensemble repertoire continue to expand? There are quite a few people who just roll up their sleeves and say, all right, I'm going to arrange this piece, I'm going to arrange that piece. And there's a lot to choose from these days, which is great. Yep.
A student of mine sent a video, maybe you've seen it, of I think a German group playing the Dvorak concerto with 4 cellos, the accompaniment, and it sounds amazing. I mean, it looks really difficult for the accompaniment parts, but it works. I mean, that's one of the great things about the cello is we have such huge range that you can really do a lot as an ensemble.
Yeah, it really is. It really is fun. And then the fact that, I mean, of course, a string quartet blends so well, but cello ensemble blends even better. It can just really can be impossible to distinguish who's on which voice at certain times. Organ stuff. All right. Well, thanks so much for your time, Adriana. This has been really fun.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
All right. And viewers, now you have the inspiration and food for thought to have a super productive weekend of practicing. And we'll see you at this time next Friday. Take care.